With the power of Tandem HR, you are in the fast lane on Main Street with Get Down to Business with Shalom Klein, the show for business and jobs. Now, the champion of networking, the advocate of jobs, the guru of business, your host, Shalom Klein.
Did you know that the average age of company founders when they started their businesses is only 40 years old? We are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. In business, we talk a lot about business here. You are on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you are there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. Get Down to Business is powered by Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them at tandemhr.com or call 630-928-0510. You can also email them, simplify@tandemhr.com. This week, we will be joined by our fabulous guests, our expert, Chris Everett, attorney Helen Block, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and Gail Schechter of Open Communities. So I'm thrilled to have back on the show now for our third time, my very good friend, and as I mentioned in my introduction to you, and I mean this wholeheartedly, an expert on financial decisions. And I know our listeners have commented to me that they always love tuning in to Get Down to Business because of the advice that you have to share. I'm thrilled to have back on the air with me Chris Everett of Everett Wealth Solutions. Chris, thanks for joining us on Get Down to Business.
Oh, Shalom, thank you so much for having me on the show and for that warm welcome.
I mean every word of it. So, Chris, I'm a young guy, and I am starting in my career. I have a lot of businesses that I'm involved in. But there's a discussion that's out there, Chris. What is a wealth leak, and why should people be concerned about it, both in their early stages in their career and certainly as they move along professionally and hopefully they earn a few bucks?
What an awesome question. You know, if what you're doing financially turned out to be inefficient and not only caused wealth leaks, but actually increased the velocity at which you were losing money, when would you want to know about it?
Obviously, you want to know early on. You want to avoid when you have a leak in your plumbing. You want to try to fill that leak before it gets too bad, don't you?
That's right. The case? So when it comes to money decisions, many that you kind of take for granted, you may be unknowingly and very unnecessarily creating these financial wealth leaks. And by leaking or transferring money away from yourself, you could be losing tens of thousands of dollars. Now, Shalom, frankly, it's more honest for me to tell you that it's really hundreds of thousands of dollars or more in your lifetime.
Oh, goodness. And when there is a leak, obviously we have two things that we need to simultaneously address. We need to make sure that we stop the leak, and we need to make sure that we repair it so we have a strong future. So, Chris, you've dealt with so many people that have gone through this process, professionals like myself, professionals that have gotten into business and have perhaps discovered a wealth leak. What is the process that you use to sort of stop that wealth leak, and how can you help educate people to make sure it doesn't happen?
Okay, great questions. First of all, they are a liability. I mean, and the liability can be either a current one or maybe a potential one waiting for you in the future, something that you might be blindsided by. They're very hidden, and you have to dig to find them, and they can be huge obstacles to creating wealth. They certainly hinder cash flow, and most advisors don't know they exist, and therefore they don't deal with them. And the reason that's true is because I find when people come to visit me, they may say, oh, I got this investment guy, or I have this insurance gal, or you know what I'm saying, or this guy does my auto and homeowners, and they never really had someone take them up 5,000 or 10,000 feet and collectively look at everything in their life that had a dollar sign connected to them.
And this isn't a remote possibility. We're not talking about a story of a John Doe in the middle of Nowheresville, Illinois. We're talking about people that you and I both know, people that have gone through this in the past that are struggling with this very issue.
My brand new client today that just signed a contract with me makes about $400,000 a year. He's in the same boat.
Wow.
So
wow.
It doesn't matter. It truly, the more you make, the more you are potentially losing, unknowingly and unnecessarily. But fortunately, they can be corrected or avoided. So before I tell you where the major wealth leaks are, you should know that they are woven into so many areas of our lives. But let me categorize where the major wealth leaks can be found. Number one, probably taxes. Paying too many current taxes or potentially future taxes. They're often found in interest areas, either in interest that we're paying or interest that we're not receiving, and non-deductible debt. So those three areas. So, for example, the way you pay for cars or your children's college education, the way you use credit cards or structure your mortgage, and even the way that you fund your retirement. So one of the biggest obstacles I see is trusting common wisdom. And you might think, wait a minute, Chris, if it's common wisdom, isn't it supposed to be right? So let's take your area, for example. Like, you know taxes, Shalom, right?
Correct.
So back in the 70s, tax professionals used to tell their high-income clients who were in the highest income tax bracket at that time of 70%. Do you remember it was 70%? Or maybe you weren't doing taxes in the 70s, but the highest rate was 70%. And they were telling their clients, look, defer a portion of that income, and we'll get you into the lower current income tax bracket. Back then it was only 50%. And that advice was based on a belief that at retirement, those clients would probably have a lower income and be able to pay taxes in those deferred incomes at a lower rate. Now, back there in the 70s, we still had stair-stepping tax brackets just like we have today. So a client in the 1970s who followed that advice may have ended up in the 50% tax bracket. But, of course, they thought it's brilliant now when they're retiring and maybe they're in a 20 or 30% tax bracket. They think that CPA was brilliant. But, Shalom, tell the truth. Did those CPAs know we were going to be in a 20 or 30% tax bracket back then?
Oh, no.
They had no clue. We had a very different economy at the time. The tax code was very different than it is right now.
So, Chris, let's take a step back. So wealth leaks, as you just explained to our listeners, they're happening to everybody. They're happening to people that we know, and wealth leaks take the form of, as you were saying, paying taxes in the perhaps ways that people cannot identify that they might be able to have some savings. Wealth leaks can take place in so many different forms. But Chris, what process do you go about to stop these wealth leaks?
Well, we have a 4-step process that we use with folks. We need to discover everything they're doing with a dollar sign. The good, the bad, and the ugly. In that discovery process, you can really uncover so much and then help them to really understand every movement that they're making with their money so that the money becomes theirs, not someone else's. And then, and only then, should they be choosing things to do. And then we stand as help to help them implement that plan. It's through that process of really uncovering and looking deeply at every dollar. For example, every dollar that you have working should be doing more than one job. Otherwise, there's usually a wealth leak associated with it. So if you have money going into a 401k plan, for example, all it's doing is building money that's going to be taxed in the future at some unknown rate. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, I get a tax deduction right now. Well, but if you're deferring at 30% to potentially pay at 40 or 50% in the future, is that really any kind of savings?
And Chris, where you stand such a position of strength over so many other folks that are out there is, first of all, you're helping your clients identify those wealth leaks, but also you are so knowledgeable and so equipped to help them recover from those wealth leaks and hopefully make some money and invest properly and really save money, which is something we talk so much about here on Get Down to Business. So, Chris, we appreciate the insight. We appreciate the knowledge and the advice, as always, on this radio show. And, Chris, how can people follow up with you to perhaps learn, do that discovery process to make sure that they're not having one of those wealth leaks that we talked so much about here today on the show? EverettWealthSolutions.com. That's EverettWealthSolutions.com or 708-771-7777. So 708-771-7777 really is the number to take a look at. And it's not just taxes we're concerned about, because you'd find that you can do so much more with less if we just eliminate the wealth leaks and reposition our thinking around how money really works. Wonderful, Chris. Thanks for joining us on the show. And I hope that you and your fellow networkers will be able to join us for breakfast just in 2 days on July 8th at MB Financial Bank in Morton Grove. Find out more information about that and about Chris Everett and all of our guests on my website at shalomklein.com. You're listening to Get Down to Business.